New year. Let's get back to some basics. So I have got a couple of things this week to talk about when it comes to travel, brand new travel, or if you've been a traveler before. Let's get back to some basics and understand exactly what it takes when you're going through that process. With me, surprisingly, Braden Boex.
Hi, I'm new.
He is not. Atlas All Access starts now. All right, Braden, welcome back.
It's good to be back.
New year, and I thought, okay, and I've wanted to do this, and we've touched on it a little bit just recently, but one of the most searched topics on Google and thus YouTube has been, how do I start travel nursing? It is a very popular thing right now that a lot of nurses are searching, and I thought, let's talk about some basics. Let's talk about what, just on a very, very basic level, what it takes to be a travel nurse. Like the first time you make a phone call to a recruiter, what are the things that you should already know? All right, so here are some basics, and I want to get your take on these. Okay, you ready? Here we go. 2 years experience.
I think that 2 years of experience makes travel nursing so much easier. I mean, it just, and it's not a hard number. End of the day, it's not. But 2 years is right around that point where you've been doing the job in that specialty for long enough that you kind of got it figured out. A lot of things are second nature, and it's going to be that much easier for you to hit a new unit and just kind of fall into the fold of just doing the job. So
when I started in the industry 18 years ago, this almost wasn't even a question. It really wasn't. It was more, it was an older population that was traveling.
Sure.
Over those 18 years, that age has gone down considerably. Not that older nurses aren't traveling, and that's not what I'm saying at all, but nurses are choosing to travel younger and younger, before kids, before boyfriends, before dogs, right? And they're finding those things on the road maybe, and then choosing where to settle down. Whereas before it was something completely different. It was a retirement of, before retirement kind of thing.
Well, and the progression, and I think like I think that the professional journey of a lot of nurses has really changed in the last couple of years. At one point it was you become a nurse and you're a nurse until you retire, or you become a nurse manager and then you retire. Yep. Now I see nurses on online that are just past their all their tests and everything.
Asking those questions already.
And they're already asking, hey, how long do I need to be somewhere before I can travel? And then it's 2 years and then travel until they get into an advanced degree. And then, it's almost like the whole progression has just moved on to the end goal of advanced degrees.
Oh, it's definitely shifted, that's for sure. And I think you're seeing more and more that there are nursing students that are nursing students now because they want to be a travel nurse, right? They heard about this lifestyle and thought, okay, well, this sounds like something for me. Maybe the perm job wouldn't necessarily be enough to bring them into the profession, maybe. I've talked to some nursing students who that's actually why. They've heard, oh, I can travel and I can do this on the road, and this sounds awesome. So I can do my job and see cool stuff along the way.
Well, and the money doesn't hurt either.
Well, that's true. We'll get to that part. All right. This is the second piece. Ask questions. So I'm going to bounce some of these off of you that I would assume, and please help me, because it's been a long time since I picked up the phone and had that first conversation with a nurse. Okay. Guaranteed hours. Do you get guaranteed hours?
You get guaranteed hours at most hospitals, with the exception of there is a call-off policy that hospitals are basically allowed, hey, over census or under census or whatever, they can take you off the schedule for a certain number of shifts over your contract without having to necessarily pay your hours as guaranteed.
Correct. So that's question number 2 then, cancellation policy.
Yep.
So explain how that works, especially with a nurse going in thinking they have guaranteed hours and then stipends and that type of thing.
Yeah, so cancellation policy is basically, just like your home job. If you don't work, you don't get paid. Hospitals have a certain number of shifts that they're able to cancel you off. And basically, it's kind of a way for hospitals to kind of protect their travelers. It gives them the ability to flex expenditures. It allows them to flex schedules without having to just outright cancel a nurse. So, if you're getting canceled every week, something to consider. But a lot of places, the cancellation policy is 3 times a contract. That's once a month. I mean, it's not as scary as it sounds.
Gotcha. Okay, so then number 3, float policy.
Okay.
You're going to float probably, right?
You are going to float.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed. 100%.
Into areas that you are competent, though, right?
Yes.
Now, talk about that a little bit.
So you should always be able to float somewhere where you are comfortable, isn't really the word that I'm looking for, but professionally competent.
Yep.
So if you are an ICU traveler, it stinks, but you're competent in just about everything. So if you are an ICU traveler, you can float to the step-down unit. You can float all the way down to the med-surg unit.
That wouldn't be fun for an ICU traveler.
It wouldn't be fun, especially because a lot of times the hospitals expect to maintain med-surg level census.
Right.
Or not census.
Ratios.
But those are things that, when you interview with managers, ask them, hey, how often do you float your travelers, and what are the ratios as I float to lower acuity floors?
Is it wrong to expect that unit, let's say you're talking to that manager during the interview, is it wrong to expect that unit to know, like, okay, we typically float, if we do float, we float to these units? Like, is that typical in a hospital setting?
A lot of them, yeah. If the hospital's using travelers, a lot of them know where they are floating their travelers to pretty consistently. But make sure that you get the manager's name that you're interviewing with, and if you discuss certain ratios, talk to your recruiter, because when you get your offer, they can put that in the work order. Float to PCU ratios 1-4 per hiring manager name. It's not foolproof. It's not. There's really no actual protection, but it gives you something that your agency can refer back to with the vendor.
Yep.
And it gives you at least a little bit of understanding of where you might end up.
This is if you're reading off my sheet here, because number 4 then is ratios.
Okay. And
every unit should be able to, during the interview process, that unit manager should be able to tell you what the ratio is for that unit.
Yes.
And that's not an unfair question. That's a very expected question. Yes.
Yeah. It is an expected question. It's one that you should absolutely ask, because you need to be aware. Even if they don't give you an answer that you're looking for, you're talking to people. You can kind of tell. You can kind of get a feeling. So if somebody's a little bit more hesitant to give you a ratio, expect 1 or 2 more patients than whatever ratio they give you.
Probably, yes. OT, are you going to work some overtime? Can you work some overtime? Is this a possibility? Because if you're traveling and your overtime rate is there, you would probably want to take advantage of that, yes?
Yeah, I think so. I would. For some of these overtime rates, I'd be there till I drop down on the floor.
Well, and the unit should be able to tell you that. Whoever you're interviewing with should be able to tell you that. Or your recruiter should be able to tell you based on the experience that they've had at that hospital.
Same thing. Yeah. I mean, Atlas, we have no policies on you have to get permission for overtime. You want to work overtime, that's your prerogative. Go get that Skrilla, as the kids say. I think.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't either. However, same thing. Ask it in an interview, because some hospitals have policies where, obviously the overtime rates for travelers are fairly high. They may make it a general policy that travelers are not able to work overtime. So ask, and then I would recommend, don't make your decisions on where you go solely based on overtime, because I have seen it where, in an interview, oh yeah, you can work every single hour of overtime that you want, and then they get there and the policy changed, travelers can't work overtime. So don't make your choices based on something that we can't guarantee.
On a hypothetical situation, maybe. All right, the last question here with the ask questions isn't even a question. It's more of a detail-oriented piece, is keeping track of your conversations during your interview. Keep track of those, whatever you talk about, like we just talked about through there, ratios and flow policy and all of that stuff. Keep track of your conversations that you have with your recruiter, because surprise, your recruiter's keeping track of those conversations too, right? You're keeping notes on that person as much as they should probably be keeping notes on you, so there isn't ever a question once you get to the unit, once you get to the hospital or wherever it is, as to what you're doing, why you're there, how you're doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm a terrible millennial. I love talking on the phone, but I like following up most of my conversations with a text message to my travelers, because then there's something written down. Hey, this is what we talked about, or at least this is the important stuff that we talked about. Yep. You should absolutely be doing that. Just like when you're talking to the managers, keep track of what their name is at the very least,
who they are, exactly.
What their role is, things like that.
Absolutely. All right. Number 3, understanding and flexibility. And I put these together for a reason. Travel nursing is hard. Nursing is hard in general. And I think travel nursing, especially right now, is hard. So you have to have that understanding, you have to have that flexibility, and you have to be ready for anything. Because I know, as a recruiter, you've seen it. You think one thing, a traveler thinks one thing going in to a contract and gets thrown a curveball on day one.
Some contracts suck. I mean, that's just really all there is to it. You're going to have, as a traveler, you're going to have days where you get abused because the staff thinks, hey, they're the traveler, they're getting paid more, so we're going to give them every single shitty patient we got. You might spend half your assignment floating to a unit that you don't work on. The manager may be a dick. End of the day, just remember why you're traveling. Is it to get experience at specific hospitals? Well, good experience or bad experience, that's what you're getting. Are you traveling for the paycheck? In which case, clock in, do your work, clock out. End of the day, it doesn't matter what happens there. You're not there to be part of the politics.
Right.
Or are you traveling to see the country? You want to go to the beach, you want to do whatever. Same thing. Clock in, clock out, and go live your life.
Right.
Just be ready. Travel nursing not all sunshine and rainbows. It's really cool, but you're getting paid as much as you do as a traveler for a reason.
Which brings me to industry news. All right, this is going to be an easy one, quite honestly. Not much has changed. Jobs are still up. Rates are still up. If you're a critical care traveler, if you travel, if you're an ICU nurse, you're an ER nurse, you are seeing COVID patients no matter what. Every unit's a COVID unit now, right?
Oh yeah,
every one of them. Give me an example of any of your travelers recently where they've walked into a situation like that. They didn't necessarily have that experience working with COVID patients, and then all of a sudden they end up at a hospital that is then just overrun.
Well, I mean, at this point, there's not many nurses out there that don't have experience working with COVID patients. Sure. But I do have travelers that have shown up to units expecting it to be a general unit, and then week 2, that unit is converted to a COVID-only unit. Yep. So, I mean, it's the rise and fall of COVID cases, and hospitals are adjusting, the best that they can. And that's kind of all there is to it.
Right. I'm concerned that there could be a breaking point. I mean, we're starting to see it with some of the nurses, right? With some nurses right now. I was just contacted by a longtime traveler today and said, hey, you got any openings for recruiters? Because I'm burnout. He used some expletives in there too, but I could see why. And quite honestly, I don't blame him. He's an ICU nurse. He's been doing this for 2 years. He's burned out, and it burned him out faster than I think maybe he ever anticipated.
I think a lot of it too is when COVID first started, it was healthcare heroes, all hands on deck. Everybody buckled down and did the work, expecting it to be a short-term change in pace. We had people coming back into nursing that had retired. Everybody just expected it to be this is going to suck for a little bit, and then it'll be done.
And then
we'll be done.
Yeah. That didn't happen.
That hasn't happened.
No. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen, quite honestly.
No.
So, which ironically brings me to just my opinion. I've talked about this before. I've done this for 18 years, 18 years coming up here in July. And it has never been a better time to be a travel nurse. At the same time, it's never been a harder time to be a travel nurse. Now, like you had said, the pay rates reflect that, right? In my opinion, you're getting paid what you deserve finally. Finally. Why did it have to come at such an expense? Why did it have to come at a time when the job, which was hard enough to begin with, got 10 times harder? Why did it take that long? I don't get it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But here's what does. If you're going to travel, if you decided this is the life for me, I want to make that money. I want to see Denver, Miami, Dallas, Fargo, North Dakota, wherever you want to go. You have to be absolutely comfortable with your why. Why are you doing it? Because if you just jump in and you go, you're going to get caught in situations like Braden had talked about where you're going to think, why am I here? Why am I doing this? And that's going to lead to your burnout faster than anything possibly could. So sit down with yourself and think about, why am I doing this? What goal do I have for my career that means I should do this right now? Because it's a really good time and it's a really hard time. But if you do it and you get through it, it's going to be one of the most rewarding things I believe you have ever done. And I know you've talked to a number of travelers that are in that exact same boat right now, that clearly understood their why, that understood why they're in the position that they're in. They may not like it, and they may cry at night when they go home, but they know why they're there, and they know why they're doing it. It's as easy as that. You have to understand why you are doing the things that you are doing in order to succeed right now, more so than ever. It will not get any easier anytime soon. I don't think it's going to get easier for all of 2022. I don't think so. It is not. I don't want to say there's no hope in sight, because that seems really bleak.
It's kind of down for you, a little dark.
I know, right? But it doesn't. Hope in sight is the wrong way to look at it. I think there's no change coming anytime soon. I read a quote from a friend of mine here on Facebook this morning that said, "Everything's a conspiracy theory if you don't understand how things work." That just resonated with me so much. Go read the comments section of your local news Facebook posts, and you'll absolutely see everything's a conspiracy theory if you don't have a basic understanding of how things work. And that makes me sad. But at the same time, that's just how the world is. And it's so much easier to access and give your 2 cents, access information, and then give your 2 cents, regardless of whether or not you have any understanding of how it works or not. It's just the world that we live in right now. So, should you do it? Yeah, you totally should. And I'm not saying that because I run a travel nurse agency and Braden is a recruiter and I want you to go do it and work for us. I'd love for you to do that. But if you do not know why you're doing it or understand the basics of it, don't do it. Understand that part first. And if you got to call and talk to a recruiter first in order to get that, find a recruiter that you connect with. And if you never travel for that person, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a reason why our recruiters sit at the desk and do what they do every single day, so they understand the life that you live. I can't live it. He can't live it. But you can. And if we can work together in conjunction to make your career the absolute best it can be, and oh, by the way, you get to see cool stuff along the way, awesome. Awesome. That's my pitch. Don't do it. Don't do it if you don't understand why.
Travel nursing. Don't do it. Rich Smith, Atlas MedStaff.
It's for all those reasons and more. You will drown if you do it without understanding why. And that's all there is to it.
It's like everything else in life. If you don't have a reason, why do it?
Why do it in the first place? Right. So, all right, that's it. 2 weeks from now, Atlas All Access is going to revisit Atlas from the beginning, our 10-year anniversary.
Ooh.
I'm going to have all kinds of fun stuff. I'm going to have memories from our first day in the office. We'll have pictures. It's going to be fun. I'm going to make a ton of work for Nathan to edit this thing. So there we go.
Everything animated.
Look, he's giving me the thumbs up. Yeah. All right, Braden, thank you so much.
Always happy to do it.
If you have any questions, Braden has a ton of nurses working for him right now, but he knows he knows a ton of other good recruiters here at Atlas that you could talk to as well. You can start with him and then move your way down. That sounds wrong. You would
And yet you said it.
Oh boy, here we go. It's time to end the episode. Braden, thank you.
No problem. Atlas All Access ends now.